My name is Sarah Pittard. I'm a playwright and a screenwriter currently living in London, but I'm originally from just south of Chicago. And I've, given money to charities. I've done, things, sort of monetary things like that. But I felt a little bit like I had all this knowledge of a place and I wasn't actually sharing it with anyone. And I decided that the best way to do that would be by, doing a weekly story, accompanied by one photograph, which I would talk about extensively each week for a year. So that means 52 photographs over the course of 1 year about my time in Syria. They were photographs that I took. Most of them are photographs that my father took. He was the one with the camera, although I did have my own little camera that I took with me to school. So I did take probably about, maybe 3 or 4 of the 52 photos, but primarily they were taken by my father. We were in Syria for about 6 months, and then we traveled down into Jordan and then down into Jerusalem, where we lived for another month and a half while my dad was doing some research at the Albright Institute there. So we were gone for about 8 months in total. I think what was actually the most poignant for me was the fact that actually we weren't that different at all. I suppose when I went there, I assumed that it would be completely different from where I was from. And in some ways that was true. It's a completely different architecture. The prices were extremely cheap in comparison to things in Illinois. And there, the language was obviously different in the food. But I think the general way in which people live and work, especially in Aleppo, where we were living at the time, was the same. And I think I also had a somewhat different experience because I was going to an international school. And while it was being run in sort of like a British school, I would say that about 80% of the students, 75 to 80% of the students were Syrian. So I was still, immersed in Syrian culture. There was a huge culture of hospitality there. And that there are parts of the West that obviously have that as part of their culture as well. But it was so much so that as we were walking down certain parts of the old city of Aleppo, we would just be invited into somebody's house and get a glimpse into their life. The family all lived there together. So it was not only, her and her husband, but it was her husband's father and her parents and their parents, so her grandparents. And it was like a big, huge family affair. Food was always plentiful. And just, spending time with people, laughing, chatting, eating. I am in touch with a lot of classmates. I keep track of them on Facebook. A couple of them have come to London actually to visit me. Most of my friends have managed to get out of Syria. Living, here in the UK, I've got 2 friends in Birmingham. I've got 1 friend in Montreal. I've got another friend in Germany. I have 1 friend whose father was a colleague of my dad's at the museum where he was working in Aleppo. And she ended up, she and her husband had to flee Aleppo because she was pregnant and they needed to get somewhere where they would have access to a good, safe hospital. So she's currently living in Gaziantep in Turkey in one of the refugee camps. And we sent her money to have her baby in one of the Turkish hospitals instead of in the refugee camp. So it's not, the stories are not always great. I still have friends living in Aleppo, but they're living in the government-controlled side. So far, they've been safe, but it's never completely safe. I mean, they've had problems with clean water issues. And so sickness has been pretty prevalent even in the areas that haven't been bombed. I've had a lot of comments on the blog from people I don't know, because obviously my family and friends read it as well. But I think that the most sort of I don't know, the one that sort of sticks out, the comments that stick out are the ones that say, I had no idea that Syria had all of these wonders. I had no idea that Syria was so similar to London or Chicago or New York, as a thriving city like that it was before the war. It makes me happy that I've been able to sort of show people who are also from the West, like myself, that indeed Syria was not sort of a, desert with people living in tents. That was something that a lot of people thought when I first moved there. A lot of my friends thought, oh, you're moving to the Middle East, and they immediately thought Bedouin. But yeah, so I guess it's just showing the beauty of the country with all of its incredible cultural heritage and archaeology, as well as the loveliness of the people there and the extremely modern culture that it was. All of the Syrians that I know, they plan on going back and rebuilding. I've not met a single Syrian or known a single Syrian that has given up hope. And it's evident when you see, the kind of all of the artists that are getting together to rebuild a lot of the ancient architecture that's been destroyed. And, refugee kids who've been interviewed saying that they now want to major in architecture and design because they want to go back and rebuild their city. And I have a friend a Syrian Lebanese friend who runs a charity called the Ana Collection. Ana in Arabic means I. And it's a series of dolls that are designed and embroidered by Syrian refugees that tell the story. And she sells these dolls online, and all of the, funds go to help these families. So I have, I feel like, I think resilience would be my answer.